Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Hello everyone, welcome to Basics Discussion Circle and Meditation. My name is Travis, I facilitate this group. In this class we go over one teaching each month. This month we're on right speech. So we'll be discussing that tonight with an emphasis on the 5 recollections. So I'll talk a little bit about it after introductions. Because this is a discussion-based group, I usually like to start by going around the class. If we can say our names and an uncomfortable truth we have a hard time accepting. That seems light and fun. So again, my name's Travis. I struggle with the concept that not everyone will like you.
Right after that, I'm Justin. Say it one more time. It's a difficult truth.
Yeah, a truth, a hard truth that we have a hard time accepting.
I think that there is no fruition to this process to make it. It's like I'm not achieving, I'm not going for a goal.
I'm Phil, and I struggle with the concept that I am often wrong.
Connie, I struggle with accepting my mother's choices in her own care.
I'm Roberto. For me, I'm struggling with accepting the world as it is right now.
I'm Diego, and I struggle with the idea and reality that I'm free.
I'm Nirmal, and I struggle with that my body is falling apart.
I'm Mark, and I struggle with the idea that maybe some people don't want to talk to me or.
I'm Brian. I struggle with the concept of my loved ones dying.
I'm Rich, and I pass on that question. Thank you.
I'm Lori, and I struggle with the concept of wanting to be accepted for who I am.
Hi, I'm Rita, and well, the word that came up is arrogance, and I guess what I mean by that is wanting to be a humble human, but realizing I can work on arrogance.
I'm Katie, and I struggle with accepting death alone.
Hi, I'm Robin, and I struggle with the schadenfreude that creeps into my brain all the time.
I'm Mike. I struggle with wanting to have it all.
I'm Lisa, and I struggle with having a lot of things in life that I can't control. Most things.
Jim, and I struggle with engaging with my body in meditation, and also with parenting a teen.
So thank you everyone for sharing. I believe that's, yes, okay. So thank you everyone for sharing. If you're online and you would like to share that as well, feel free. I know maybe you thought you escaped because you're not here in person, but you're still welcome to leave it in the live chat. So tonight's meditation we'll lighten the mood. You know, we start out a little heavy. We'll lighten the mood with some death contemplation. So tonight we'll be working with the 5 recollections. And the 5 recollections are or a Buddhist practice that's done pretty much in any monastery that you'll go to. They're recollections that are recited every single morning. So regardless of the tradition of Buddhism, sometimes they'll be called recollections, sometimes they'll be called remembrances, but the content of them stays the same. So they are, I am subject to aging. Aging is unavoidable. I am subject to illness. Illness is unavoidable. I am subject to death. Death is unavoidable. I will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me. I know that one's a bit of a doozy. And then I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions, and live dependent on my actions. So those are the 5 recollections that we'll be working with tonight. They can sound kind of negative or pessimistic, but they're not saying anything that's untrue. In fact, they're objectively true. Aging, illness, death, and separation are a natural part of life. The pain and suffering that comes from them comes from our inability to accept them as a natural part of life. When we have resistance to them, then we're blindsided by them. And it causes all sorts of discomfort, stress, dissatisfaction. So the intention behind why at any given monastery they'll chant these every single day is to acknowledge them. Because we know that they're true, but we don't necessarily know that they're true. Like we don't operate from the assumption that they're true. We tend to operate from kind of what I refer to as an immortality fallacy, right? On some level of thinking it's aging, illness, and death, that's something that happens to other people. That's not something I have to deal with, not something I have to worry about. When we're, an example of this that I always like to touch on is when we get sick, we suddenly become obsessed with our health, right? Once we're sick, we become obsessed with our health. And as soon as I'm done with this, as soon as this flu is gone, as soon as this cold gone, I'm going to be hitting the gym again, even if you weren't in the last 5 years before getting sick. I'm going to be hitting the gym again. I'm going to go running. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that because we got ill. And so because we don't accept that as an inevitability, as a natural process of life, we only have that motivation once we're already ill. If we can accept that as a natural part of life, something that's inevitable, we could have that kind of motivation to look after our health all the time. So that's just one example of it. But so tonight we'll be doing a meditation based on the recollections. The objective of the meditation is to become aware of any resistance that we're feeling towards these perceptions, any tensing up of the body, any mental gymnastics that we're doing to disprove them, anything like that. Yeah. So during the meditation, basically the way that it'll go, we'll start with a bit of breath meditation, and then we'll go into bringing up one of the phrases internally. And we do this in a variety of ways, and I'll give a variety of suggestions. We can just work with the phrase. Sometimes I like to imagine a mirror in front of me reflecting the actual visual imagery of the phrase. Anything that really elicits a reaction is helpful, as long as it's not too strong of a reaction. Because what we want to do is recognize any tension, stress, or tightness that comes up in response to that and consciously relax it. And then reaffirm that statement. Notice if tension comes back, consciously relax it. In this way, we're basically using the body as a proxy to tell the mind that we would like to let go of resistance. We would like to let go of our resistance around believing those processes to be true, because it wastes a lot of energy and it doesn't really accomplish anything to try to sidestep them. We're here trying to wake up. In this practice, we're trying to wake up to the true nature of reality, the true nature of why we suffer. And it's hard to do that if we don't notice the ways in which we're lying to ourselves. A quote by, I believe it was Ajahn Fong, said, "The way to the truth, or the way to find the truth, is by being true." So we're trying to sit here in this moment and be true. Yeah. So The only two other things, one, if at any point during the meditation it becomes too overwhelming, just return to the breath, that's fine. Yeah. And then if you feel ready again, you can go back to the recollections. But if at any point it's mildly uncomfortable, just stick with it. That's the whole point of the meditation. It's going to be uncomfortable. But if it starts to become overwhelming, just return to the breath. Just set it aside for the time being, return to the breath. Once things have calmed down, you can try a different recollection. And then the only other thing that I'll say is the recollection of I will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me, means two things. I should have touched on that earlier, but I didn't. One is I will grow different from and separate from everything that I find dear and appealing, meaning many of the things that we're obsessing over right now in our lives, a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, 90% of those are not going to matter to us. And then the other side of it is many of the things that we find dear and appealing will grow apart from us, either by the whims of time, their own choice, or anything else, regardless of whether we want to grow apart from them or not. Yeah. So nice light meditation for tonight. It's a meditation that's uncomfortable to do, but if you can get into the groove of it, it's actually quite freeing because we're letting go of a lot of the stuff, a lot of the mental hang-ups that we have around these kind of core concepts of life. And that can really lighten the burden. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Closing the eyes, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. Settling in to a natural rhythm of breathing. Not forcing breath in or squeezing breath out. Simply allowing breath to flow in, allowing breath to flow out. Maintaining awareness of breath and noticing if there's any tension in the forehead or the eyes, the jaw or the shoulders. And consciously relaxing that tension all the way through the in-breath, all the way through the out. Maintaining awareness of breath, relaxing tension in the chest and the stomach, all the way through the in-breath, all the way through the out. And as we move on to the practice of the 5 recollections, you may find it helpful to maintain a gentle smile on the face, smiling not only with the mouth, but with the eyes as well. This can help to create a positive feedback loop, a positive association with this practice. And allowing the breath to kind of fade into the background a bit. We can begin working with the phrase, I am subject to aging. Aging is a natural part of life. Whatever youth I have now, whatever degree of youth, will not last forever. I will grow older, more wrinkled, more gray. Noticing any physical tension in response to this recollection, and consciously relaxing it. Forehead, shoulders, anywhere else. I am subject to aging. Aging is unavoidable. Relaxing the body one more time. Forehead, shoulders, anywhere else. Reestablishing that gentle smile and working with the next recollection. I am subject to illness. Illness is unavoidable. Whatever degree of health I currently have will not last forever. Eventually, I will grow ill or be injured or be uncomfortable. This is a natural part of life. Noticing any physical resistance and consciously relaxing it. Forehead, shoulders, chest. Once again, relaxing the body. Reestablishing that gentle smile. And moving on to the next phrase. I am subject to death. Death is unavoidable. All things that are born eventually pass away. So too will I eventually pass away. Noticing resistance and softening into it. Sometimes I even like to imagine looking in the mirror and seeing a skeleton. Look back. Sometimes that elicits that resistance. And then we can relax it. Relaxing the body again. in working with the next recollection. I will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me. Many of the things I currently obsess over will, in time, not have the same meaning to me. And many of the things that I hold dear, in time, will fall away by their own whim. Softening into the moment, relaxing around the statement. Again, relaxing the body and working with the next recollection. Reestablishing that gentle smile. I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions, and live dependent on my actions. Whatever I do for good or for ill, to that will I fall heir. Every thought, every word, and every deed has consequences, whether blatant or not. Noticing any physical resistance and consciously relaxing it. You are solely responsible for your own actions. Relaxing the body one last time. forehead, shoulders, chest, stomach, anywhere else. Reestablishing that gentle smile and calling to mind the uncomfortable truth that you shared at the beginning of the class. And you can use that objective truth as your final phrase here. Repeating it internally to yourself, noticing physical tension or resistance, and consciously relaxing it as many times as need be. Setting that aside and returning to sensation of breath. Relaxing the forehead, the eyes, the jaw, the shoulders, the chest and stomach, arms and legs. Allowing any resistance that built up in this past session to fall away from the body with each in-breath and each out-breath. When you're ready, you can slowly open the eyes and stretch if needed. Never in a rush to leave the meditation. As always, after meditation, if anyone would like to share how that experience was for them, whether you found it enjoyable, difficult, straightforward, confusing, or whatever else you may be sitting with in this moment,
you had to do a meditation about death, aging, decay, and death on my birthday.
Perfect. That's the best day to do it. Happy birthday. So actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because every year for my birthday, that's what I do. Because typically my birthday is June 2nd, so it's almost always right around the day of silence. So when we do the half day of silence retreat, I do 4 hours of death contemplation, because I'm just that fun. But it's really helpful on any kind of anniversary, and I mentioned this last week, on any kind of anniversary, a contemplation on impermanence is a really beautiful thing, because it not only prevents us from taking for granted that we made it, but also it just allows us to appreciate what we have so much more when we recognize that it's not guaranteed. So yeah.
To speak about my experience, you know, the aging and the death and the disease, I was okay with, you know, I didn't notice anything flare up particularly, but when you spoke about all the things that you love and appeal to you will eventually, like, you'll lose interest in or will leave you, that had quite a large impact on me. And that was quite interesting. That in particular, all the other things, I was like, oh, I'm okay with that. But to know that, like, yeah, everything you love, everything that loves you will eventually be gone, you know?
It's definitely, I think the first three are something that more or less we understand are an inevitable thing. We may not operate from that understanding, but the one I think that we have the most kind of, that we've deluded ourselves the most about is probably the separation. We think that for some reason, it's almost like the intensity of our emotion justifies that this thing will remain. Because we feel so strongly about it, there's no other way that could be, that must stay, which just isn't the case. So yeah, thank you for sharing. If anyone else would like to share, I did want to read 2 comments on here. Sherry shared, I struggle with accepting the cumulative losses of the people in my life over time. The truth that they are gone forever. The 5 recollections are relevant to that feeling. I'm glad it was a relevant meditation for you tonight, Sherry. And then Ivy shared, I struggle with needing to be in control. One of my favorite, it's a popular like Buddhist Facebook meme, but it's just a person like looking all zen, meditating on the edge of a cliff or something, like most of them, which isn't typically what meditation looks like. Typically meditation looks like sitting in your office chair at your house. But so they're sitting on the edge of the cliff with like the sunset in the background, and it says, relax, nothing is in control. I really like that. Takes the pressure off. So would anyone else like to share?
Interestingly, I felt just a lot of warmth in general towards myself, like almost in a way that helped me realize how much stock I put into how much I resist the idea of aging specifically. It was changing emotion. I laughed at myself once because I was like fully visualizing myself in hospice, like, I think it was modeled after my grandfather's hospice room. I was like sitting in bed criticizing like the decor of the room, the lighting, like all this other stuff, and it's like I'm not worried about the fact that but that stuff comes with me. And then I think the one that was most abstract for me was the last one, just because I'm always thinking like I'm in control of my actions, but who am I? Like I'm not permanent. I don't exist. Like I wouldn't. Yeah, so that's the one that I'm just kind of like not sure what to do with.
It's definitely the one that doesn't have the clearest picture in our head.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. That one tends to be, that recollection is useful especially when we have a tendency to go out and do a bunch of unskillful things, because it kind of helps course correct that a bit. Like, there will be consequences to this. The other shoe will drop. But it also is a helpful recollection to continue doing good things as well. Yeah, it's a bit harder to have like a visual reference for that, where the other ones have very strong visual motifs.
I found that all 5 were easy for me to think of myself as, and contemplate for myself, but it brought up a lot of ideas around attachment to my loved ones specifically, and so it's easy for me to think about aging, and it's easy, and I think, oh, it's a privilege to, if I'm able to grow old and those types of things, but when I put that on my parents, for example, or my children, that's when it becomes more difficult, and I think it's because of that, the idea of impermanence and having especially attachment to the ones that I love.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I found it easier for myself, but then I would think about, my parents, family, and how it's difficult for them. Like, they're not on the Buddhist path, and just, patiently kind of trying to just ease their mind a bit, at least about it. But,
One of the other ways that I've led this meditation before and that I do myself is with other people. And it would be, typically I'd follow a similar formula to like loving kindness meditation, but I would take, if I'm doing this practice on my own, I typically would be working with one recollection at a time, other than I do the chant every morning for the most part. But if I'm sitting down to do a seated practice, I usually pick one of the recollections and then go through it with the same formula as a loving kindness meditation. So like, I am subject to death, and then a very close friend or a family member is subject to death, and then a neutral person, like the person who made your coffee this morning or something like that, is subject to death, and then someone I dislike is subject to death, and then notice the Schadenfreude in that experience. And then all beings are subject to death. And that can be more intense. I didn't want to do that tonight. It was like, imagine your loved one's passing is more of a personal choice for the practice rather than me sitting up here telling you to do it. So yeah, thank you both for sharing. So I'll talk a little bit. I think I'll probably partially read from the script. I have handouts up here, and that's what I'll be reading from, but it's not really cheating because I made the handout. So, I have a cracked rib tonight, so I'm not super focused. I cracked it on Monday, so yeah. So tonight's topic, as I mentioned, that I think I mentioned at the beginning, is this month we're talking about right speech. And the reason we did the recollections is because of right speech's focus on truthfulness. Focusing on what's true to us, what's objectively true, and focusing on the ways that we lie to ourselves. And the 5 recollections highlight 5 of the main ways that we lie to ourselves. So I'll read a little bit. So right speech is the aspect of the path that most directly relates to the narrator. It involves taking ownership of both verbal and internal speech by adopting the principle of non-affliction, realizing that the way we speak to others informs the way we speak to ourselves, which in turn affects our well-being and how clearly or unclearly our mind perceives its current situation. Noticing the ways we go about lying to ourselves is one of the main aspects of the practice. This is one of the reasons for the 5 recollections. They highlight some of the ways in which we lie to ourselves, whether consciously or outside the field of awareness. So that quote I shared at the beginning, it's by being true that we find the truth. It's by being true, being honest with ourselves, in all sorts of situations, not just in the ones where honesty is convenient for us. It's being honest throughout all of those situations that allows us to be true to ourselves, be true with ourselves, recognize the ways in which we lie to ourselves, the ways in which we cause ourselves suffering through that lying, the ways in which we're essentially gaslighting ourselves throughout our day, and from all of our past conditioning that we're bringing into the moment, past limiting beliefs, past limiting perceptions that we're bringing into this moment from early childhood, from young adulthood, that we're bringing into every single moment without us necessarily realizing that we're doing that, without ever taking the time to stop and reflect on the things that we believe to be true, that we truly, genuinely believe to be true, not just the things we objectively know are false. Many of the things that we hold on to that we would objectively know are false, we're not consciously aware of them being false. We operate from the assumption that they're true. So right speech is about taking ownership, not only of what we're saying, but of that internal dialogue as well. Those internal limiting beliefs, those internal causes and conditions to our suffering. Recognizing that they're there, recognizing if there's actually any truth in them, or they're just an echo from the past. They're someone else's truth, not ours. So yeah, that's kind of right speech in a sense. In a more practical sense, right speech is defined as abstaining from several activities. So lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and idle chatter. Lying is speaking with the intention to deceive someone. Divisive speech is speaking with the intention to divide friendships or cause a rift between two people. Harsh speech is speaking with the intention of causing harm. And idle chatter is speaking without any clear intention at all. And it's by abstaining from those four activities that one is considered to be practicing right speech in the formal sense of it. And then it's by taking those aspects of speech and also internalizing them to ourselves. We're not lying to ourselves, we're being honest about what we're bringing into the moment, but we're also trying not to be harsh about it. Just because it's true, even if it's harsh, just because it's true doesn't mean that we have to entertain that. We can repackage it in a way that's not actually actively harmful to us. We can bring compassion into the way that we talk to ourselves. And oftentimes with harsh speech, there's not actually a lot of truth in it. That tends to be when it's someone else's truth that we've picked up over the years. Being told when you're little that you had a mean streak, so now you're a mean person or you're a bad person. Or things like that. Holding on to something that was told to you when you were young, and then using it as one more tool in our arsenal to make life hard on ourselves. Yeah. So one thing I really like, and then I'll just open up to any questions anyone has on any of this. Up at the monastery in Valley Center, Metaforest, they have in the visitor area, it's not in the old visitor area, now there's a new area that you kind of park at and stuff, but in the old visitor area, on the kitchen wall, there's a sign that's meant to, like when you park there and you walk past it and you see the sign, and it says, please practice right speech while at the monastery. I believe the sign says something like, right speech isn't just silence. And then it says, in order to practice right speech at the monastery, wait. Before you speak, wait. Which means ask yourself, why am I talking? Wait. What's my intention with what I'm about to say? Is there an intention of causing harm, an intention of deceiving someone, whether that's like maliciously or just to make yourself sound better or whatever? Is there no clear intention to what I'm about to say at all? Or is the intention to cause a rift? So ask yourself, before you speak, wait. Why am I talking? What's my intention? And that alone, I could have just said that for the entire talk, and that would have been enough to work with for years to come. Wait, why am I talking? what's your intention? That will take you everywhere. So we'll go ahead and open up to any questions, whether you have questions online or here. Just feel free to ask them, or if you have anything you'd like to share that brought up for you, that's always welcome as well.
Is right speech also what you're thinking as well, or is that right mindfulness?
So
Right resolve.
right speech is also how we talk to ourselves internally. Yeah. But it's more of it's not tackling the thoughts that are coming up, it's more of how we're narrating the thoughts or thinking about them, like verbally internally.
I have like a little bit of like cognitive dissonance with right speech because I used to think like gossip was a terrible thing. And then I kind of heard an idea that it's a way sort of for marginalized people to warn each other about maybe someone who's mistreats people, or so I kind of like wonder how, you know, if you're using speech to like call out something that's harmful, is that still like not right speech?
That's a good question. So it really comes down to the kind of the intention that we're speaking from, right? So the essence of the question is warning someone about someone whom you know to be harmful or whom you know to be abusive, is that divisive speech, or is that gossip? Well, the intention with divisive speech is to break up friendship, break up relationship, and that's the core intention. The intention in that situation is to protect someone else or to help someone else. And that's a skillful resolve, a skillful intention, as long as we can approach it with care and skill, right? There's always that element of, in here, I'll read this portion of the sutra because it addresses that in a way. The Buddha gives instruction for the qualities that go into right speech in terms of, because like the lying, divisive speech, abusive speech, idle chatter, that's what to avoid. But he also gives some framework for how to approach right speech in the positive sense. So a statement endowed with 5 factors is well-spoken, not ill-spoken. It is blameless and unfaulted by knowledgeable people. Which 5? It is spoken at the right time. It is spoken in truth. It is spoken affectionately. It is spoken beneficially. And it was spoken with a mind of goodwill. So all of those qualities are present in that situation that you're asking about. The most important one there, right? Because we have, is it spoken in truth? Is it something that you know to be true about this person that you're warning the other person about? Or is it just something that you've heard from someone else or something like that? Do you know it to be true? If you know it to be true, then awesome. Is it spoken affectionately? And affectionately just means that it's not spoken with the intention of causing harm to the person that you're speaking to, which clearly isn't the intention in that situation. And then is it spoken beneficially? Is there a benefit to warning this person about this other person? Sometimes, in rare occasions, if someone's not ready to hear what you have to say about that other person, it could be more harmful than beneficial, because it may cause that person to run into the arms of the person that you're trying to warn them about, as kind of an aversion to the authority of someone else, right? Because we're saying that person's dangerous, you shouldn't be around them. And then the other person, if they're not in the right frame of mind, they'll be, I'll show you, and they'll run to that person. Is it spoken beneficially? And then is it spoken with a mind of goodwill? And that comes down to your intention. It's that goodwill, that wanting to help that other person, wanting to protect that other person. So as long as you're aware of what intentions you're operating from, and you're also aware of, you have a sense of time and place, right? You don't ever want to blindside someone with a warning, warning someone about someone else. You don't want to blindside them maybe right before they're about to interact with that person and you blindside them with it. It's probably not the best time. Those are just a few thoughts that come up. Hopefully that helps clear up a bit. We have time for one more. If anyone has a burning question or, yeah.
Well, this is something that comes up is there might be times where you might want to tell someone something affectionately and skillfully, and I'm thinking that it doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna like hearing it. And it could still be right speech, couldn't it? If you're doing it for a good reason, lovingly and skillfully.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, thanks.
So there's even in these four types of wrong speech that the Buddha lists out, the lying, divisive speech, abusive speech, and idle chatter, the only one that the Buddha made a precept was lying, to abstain from lying in all situations regardless. So what that kind of, expanding upon that, what that means is that there are situations where divisive speech is necessary, or where harsh speech may be necessary. Maybe coming from a kind place, but it's something harsh that needs to be said to someone to wake them up from whatever unskillful spiral that they may be in. And then there's also times where idle chatter is necessary in order to make someone feel welcomed or comfortable. So there are times when those forms of wrong speech, if the intention is correct, if the intention is right, then they can be beneficial and they can be useful. But the Buddha states very clearly in terms of that, lying is never beneficial, because when we lie to others, we lie to ourselves. We're not able to see the truth of the way things are. And this entire practice is about waking up to the truth of the way things are. So if we're misrepresenting the truth, we're also misrepresenting the practice. And that's why that's the only one that's a precept. Did that address your question?
Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and close there. If you have any questions for me that you just didn't want to ask in a group, feel free to come up and ask them afterwards. I also, as I mentioned, I have some handouts down here. It's about right speech, and it has the 5 recollections on it as well. So if you're a glutton for punishment, there's instructions for the 5 recollections on the page. We'll go ahead and close with a dedication of merit and then some announcements. If comfortable, please join palms. May all beings in all directions, without limit or end, be healthy, safe, joyful, and at ease. May we all be healthy, safe, joyful, and at ease. Metta karuna mudita upeka sangha teya cetasa chaturisa maratva viharati sammamunaro bhavena sammanamaro bhavena sammasangharo bhavena sote hantu nirantaram.